have to ask, do you remember this?
This was pinpoint bombing of such astonishing accuracy that even an Israeli I met here was filled with admiration.
Or this?
The breaking news comes from Toronto, where a new detailed report is shedding light on racial profiling and discrimination by the Toronto Police Service. It shows Black people in the city are far more likely to be injured or even killed during an altercation with police.
Or this?
It also found that a greater proportion of Indigenous populations are at risk of river flooding.
Or this?
There was a guy in there with a pistol, it's probably fake, but he's like pointing it at everybody.
The guy was a 12-year-old, Tamir Rice.
What about this? Do you remember that?
The video shows ICE agents approaching an SUV stopped across the middle of the road in a residential neighborhood. Agents demand the driver open the door, and as the SUV begins to pull forward...
To understand imperialism, colonialism with capital, you have to look at history. History shows us that the moment we're living in right now has already been shaped or beta tested in places, on people you probably don't know and you probably don't care about.
Look at them, they're everywhere!
Would you just put the goddamn glasses on already? We're told markets are neutral and crises are accidents. We're told that strongmen will appear when things fall apart. Take Chile. For all my Canadian brethren, and I hate to disappoint, I mean, we do have this reputation of being very nice, very welcoming. However, Canada helped isolate and economically squeeze the Allende government before the 1973 coup. The Pinochet regime was recognized quickly by everyone, and the money started flowing, right? No more sanctions. Thank you, Canada. Enter the Chicago Boys, students of Milton Friedman, who was a huge advocate for free markets and deregulation. They took over the economy in Chile and forced in a shock therapy, like just ram these ideas and these policies down the throat of the citizens. And to this day, people will argue that, it was a good economy, that the GDP was amazing. But yet that's for whom? Right? For foreign investors, sure. For IMF loan repayments, absolutely. But for the average Chilean citizen, it was, horrible. It was a murderous dictatorship, and they were living under poverty and in with austerity and just unemployment rates that were terrible. And this is how the illusion works. It tricks you. It tells you that that authoritarianism is necessary and violence is natural and suffering is just how things are. So I'm embarrassed to say this, but I only watched The Thing like 2 years ago. I'm Gen X, man. I was like raised on horror films, and I don't know why. Like as a toddler, I remember being made to watch a horror film with adult supervision. Like animated horror was my Peppa Pig.
I am Peppa Pig.
When I finally got around to watching it, I noticed something that nobody was arguing online or talking about. It was the two black characters, Childs and Niles. And the fact that these were two black characters isolated in a all-white working environment in the Antarctic, a research outpost in the Antarctic, where nobody trusted each other. And somehow the white guy with the flamethrower ends up being in charge. And I get it. I mean, there's people going to be pushing back on this, but like, he wasn't voted in. There was no appointment. There was no debate. He kind of just felt like the de facto leader. And looking back on it now, I realize that's the ideology. MacReady becomes the authority because he embodies the myth of competence. Now zoom out and look at Kurt Russell in the other John Carpenter films. Escape from New York, 1981. Snake Plissken is a Cold War anti-hero, cynical, capable. The system is corrupt, but the rugged individual still cuts through it. Wicked anti-hero. People love that. Then you look at The Thing, 1982. MacReady is a paranoid, isolated, but framed as necessary authority. He doesn't defeat the threat, he contains it, maybe. And finally, Big Trouble in Little China, 1986. Jack Burton is loud, confident, convinced he's the hero, but he isn't. The movie quietly reveals he's the sidekick. Kurt, can I call you Kurt? Kurt Russell's characters go from deadly, serious American myth to self-parody within 5 years. The archetype shrinks, and it's not just a coincidence. It's paralleled with America shrinking. Then in 1989, the Berlin Wall falls, which symbolized the end of the Cold War. And we see that, like, once the Cold War ends, that monster's gone. That external monster is gone. But the crisis logic doesn't disappear, so what do? If there's no enemy on the outside, you start looking on the inside. And that's the thing. The paranoia doesn't end. It just changes targets. Charles questions MacReady, he challenges him, he doesn't even trust him. MacReady doubts someone, it feels tactical. When Childs does it, it feels dangerous. It's the same action, it just has different gravity. And that's what happens in white institutional spaces. It doesn't silence blackness loudly, it reframes it. Resistance becomes hostility. Suspicion becomes insubordination. MacReady can go and tie people up and threaten to burn them, and that's seen as tactical leadership. Childs questions people or is suspicious, and it's seen as danger. Under crisis, consolidation feels rational. And here's my working theory. The Thing assimilates, it copies, it erases difference while maintaining a surface familiarity. It doesn't kill you, it becomes you. And that's imperialist logic. That's corporate logic. That's neoliberal logic. And historically, margins are beta tested. Surveillance tech, riot control, police brutality, austerity. They're tested in the periphery and then normalized. If you look at the early BLM protests, you'll see that Gazans were, giving advice on how to deal with tear gas to Americans. Because it was the same weapons that were being used on them. The snow didn't just start falling. It just reached the outpost. This is why I love John Carpenter. He is brilliant at reframing Lovecraftian horror for for reality. In The Thing, the horror is external. The threat is external. It's foreign. It's alien. It's other. It's something from out there. But if you watch closely, you'll see that something else spreads in the room. Paranoia and authority. The room starts shifting around fear. Nobody votes. Nobody debates. The crisis hits, and instinctually, they give the gun to the guy who looks like he's already in control. That's not survival, that's training. Now jump to They Live, 1982. The world is already infected. Not by tentacles, by ideology. Subliminal messages and advertisements. Consume, obey, sleep. And what does it take to see it? A fight. A ridiculous, excessive alleyway brawl just to get someone to put glasses on. Because people don't want to see the structure, they want comfort. Now back to The Thing. MacReady ties everyone up and threatens to burn them. And the film frames it as necessary. Necessary control, necessary leadership, necessary violence. And that's Carpenter's reoccurring question. Once the illusion drops, Who do we trust? If MacReady's infected, the center's already compromised, but if Childs is affected, dissent gets assimilated, like rainbow capitalism. If neither are affected, then paranoia won and burned the place down. The alien doesn't have to win. The structure wins. And that's the through line. In John Carpenter's world, the monster isn't just out there. It's a system you hand the flamethrower to when you're terrified. You find an external threat, you blame it on them, and then you hope daddy takes care of it. I once knew this guy who was so adamant in Canada about bringing back chain gangs. I guess bringing chain gangs to Canada because we never had them. Chain gangs, if you don't know, it was this Jim Crow institution where they would get men of color, usually, chain them up and have them work hard in the sun. The chain was so they couldn't escape. And it was totally legal thanks to the 13th Amendment, which said that slavery is illegal unless you've been charged with a crime. This guy told me that prison was a revolving door, and I asked him, why was it a revolving door? And he said, because you get a roof over your head and 3 square meals. And that's when I realized some people don't see punishment. They see hospitality. And I left this guy to his self-lobotomy in peace. The outpost didn't fall because the alien arrived. It fell because they decided who to trust before proof. Charles was right to be suspicious. Suspicion isn't aggression, it's just caution. It's memory. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment. Also, check out the Substack at gavinstevens.substack.com and everything else at gavinstevens.ca. Thank you.